there's a project that they really want to do or they want to tender for, then I will tender for the project and they will work with me as part of my project team and we'll deliver the project together. And when I say we will deliver the project together, it means that I come into Australia for 2 weeks, train them or make sure that they know which tools we are going to use on that particular project. When everyone is happy, then I leave. And they nominate a project leader from their community, and we communicate via Skype while they are collecting all the data. And then I come back to Australia again for 3 weeks or a month, and we sit together and we look at the data and we talk about whether, oh, have we collected enough? Oh, we didn't collect enough. We better go back again and do something, or we start to interpret the information. And I do most of the writing while they are talking. So they say, yeah, you know, this is the big story that came out. This is the small story, and this is the little bit story. So we found a way of analyzing that allows them to be the ones that are actually driving the key issues or the key ideas that are coming from the project, and then some of the ideas that did come, but they considered to be minor. Since we formed the network, what we've done is we've participated in competitions to tender for big government projects to evaluate things. So we've been part of a group that evaluated the Land and Sea Management Program in the Northern Territory, or what they call the Caring for Country Program. We've evaluated the Northern Territory intervention in 3 communities, middle-sized communities. We've evaluated the government's remote services delivery. When I say the government, I'm talking about the Australian government. So these are federal government projects that we've been able to tender for and succeed to get the contracts. And at the moment, we are doing a project with the Bushfire, Natural Hazards and CRC, which is looking at how local people in remote areas respond to natural hazards. And as part of that project, we've, of course, been able to present our findings at the AFAC workshop once a year. And we've also produced posters about what we are finding out. We've been able to write papers, and some of the researchers have gone to these conferences to present. So at the moment, we are working on a framework that we have developed, which is called the Hazard Research Framework. And this one is really an idea that we've come up with to say, if the Indigenous people were left to their own devices and government was not involved, what would it take for them to look after themselves when the cyclone came, or if a big bushfire came? And we've sat down with the elders and come up with this framework or model. And now we will go back into the communities and see if we can populate those boxes that we identified, and then present it to the government and say, well, if you went with the model which was community driven, this is what it would look like. And we think that you should at least give it a go in one community before you upscale it to other communities. Then they say, Bev, you better come. We need to go and talk to this government mob so that we can explain that we can do this. So then I trot off and go and try to help to explain that we have the capacity and we have the capability on the ground to do it. And quite often it's been really exciting, because a lot of the key researchers that are now experienced have been snapped up by the federal government to other positions. So I'm losing a lot of the experienced stuff, and I'm having to retrain people on a regular basis. Well, I can tell you that just in the Northern Territory alone, there's at least 3 models of Indigenous, well, maybe 4 models of evaluation that are existing, which purport or claim to involve Indigenous people. There's the first model is that one of the, excuse my language, but the outsiders or white fellas, a company coming in and doing the evaluation and employing 1 or 2 people that they call community liaison. And they helped them sort of go around the community, sort of saying, this is where you find this one, or this is where you find this. So that's one model which is really popular with the government departments and even the federal government. And I think it tends to be quite cheap. Then we have the second model. The researcher arrives to the community and they have tools ready, and they train a group of Indigenous researchers to collect the data. And once the data is collected, the researcher gets the data and goes to do the analysis, and they might come back to do feedback. So that's another model that is existing. And then you have our model where we, even when we have tendered for a project to do, we determine our own research methodology and our approach. And we collect the data, we analyze the data, and we report back, not just to the client, but also to the community. So ours can, you can say, is the extreme kind of engagement, because really, aside from me, everyone is Indigenous in my team. And all the money, at least is between 60 to 75% of the value of the budget that we get, we try to spend it in the community. So it's not spent on me or anything else that is needed outside. So when you think about it, this model of research is exciting and it's really yielding very good results, but it is also expensive. And expensive because we work in teams or in groups, and we go into the community for extended periods, and the group camps out together and they do everything together. And that tends to bring a cost. So as opposed to one outsider evaluator coming in and staying in one hotel room, we have a big group. So we have about 8 tents that are up. And so that tends to take up more money and resources. So we are not always putting up competitive bids against other companies because our way is more expensive. The second, perhaps big challenge they faced is that of bigotry. The fact that a lot of the team members in my group have no qualifications and are not seen as really researchers in their own right, that has been problematic for us. Even though we've tried to move away from the evaluator researcher label and call them research practitioners, that still brings with it the fact that, oh, they don't have any paperwork. So even when we are paying them for the work that they are doing, and we do it through the university that hosts us, they find it really difficult to be flexible in their payment regimes because of the lack of qualifications. So we find that, you know, even the researchers that we do have, they get a bit despondent because their salaries or pay, they never change from the basic casual laborer sort of fee that we started with up to now, even though they've been working with me over 15 years. So that's been a great challenge for us. How do we recognize the capability that we have? And even with the number of publications or reports that they have participated with, that still is not seen as an equivalent of a qualification. So that is a big problem. And then again, it's not necessarily a negative, but it's worked against our favor, is the fact that a lot of the people that we've trained who are now very able and very sort of comfortable operating in the research and evaluation sphere, they get taken over by those organizations that can afford them. And because we are more or less doing it as a charity or charitable sort of enterprise, we are not able to compete. So I cannot guarantee employment for most of the researchers unless we have a project. And we only have a project when they're interested in the project. That means that we never have any money lying around to support anyone. So that's been a big challenge for us, the fact that we failed to attract enough interest from the government or the private industry to create some sort of fund to support ongoing training so that we keep our numbers up. We have a critical mass of researchers and evaluators, or that we have the infrastructure required for the network to operate effectively.